This is the kind of betrayal that feels like it was ripped straight from the pages of a crime novel. A woman, driven by greed, poisons her own husband, believing she's about to inherit a fortune. But in a cruel twist of fate, she only realizes too late that the entire inheritance was nothing more than a scam.
He's dead. And he was poisoned. We think she poisoned him.
I was like, is it cursed? And people that go after it are dying? He's like, I don't know, maybe.
On September 4th, 2023, Stephen Riley Jr., a North Dakota man, was airlifted to the hospital after experiencing a sudden and severe illness for 2 days. His girlfriend, Ina Kanur, had initially believed he was suffering from heat stroke, but when he collapsed and became unresponsive, she called 911. Despite medical efforts, Stephen passed away the following day, shocking those who knew him. However, his death was not a natural occurrence. It was the result of ethylene glycol poisoning, commonly found in antifreeze. The autopsy further revealed that there was no alcohol in his system, contradicting Ina's claim that he had been drinking. As authorities began investigating, suspicions arose regarding Ina's involvement. Friends and family pointed fingers at her, convinced that she had poisoned him. Their relationship had reportedly been deteriorating, and with whispers of a large inheritance in the air, the motive became clear. Was Ina truly mourning the loss of her partner, or was she hiding something far more sinister? On September 5, 2023, police arrived at the Riley property in Ward County, North Dakota, to conduct a preliminary investigation. Stephen, who was 51, had no known major health conditions that could explain his sudden death. His girlfriend, Ina, 47, considered herself his common-law wife, though this status was not legally recognized in North Dakota. When the officers informed her of Stephen's passing, she appeared devastated.
If it's true, if he died in Bismarck, still the same day?
I thought everybody knew. I'm sorry.
Don't tell me anything! Oh my God!
Only a few days earlier, he had been a healthy man, and now he was gone. However, others at the property, particularly Stephen's friend Billy, were skeptical of Ina's reaction. Billy, who was waiting for Stephen's son, Ryan Riley, to arrive from out of state, was wary of Ina's intentions.
If I just keep her from not selling all his stuff, everything will be fine.
So what's your plan right now?
We're making sure nothing goes.
He feared that she might try to sell off Stephen's belongings before Ryan could claim them.
What is she going to take and sell?
All my tools, his tools.
Some,
I think it should go to his son.
I
think that
everything, by law, everything goes to the son. So,
In a conversation with the police, Billy voiced his concerns, stating that Stephen's property rightfully belonged to his son and that Ina should not be allowed to take anything. He was especially worried about Stephen's truck, which he believed should go to Ryan. Despite Ina's insistence that the truck was registered under Stephen's name, she had no official paperwork to prove it. The situation at the Riley home quickly escalated as multiple individuals laid claim to Stephen's possessions.
He keeps trying to take Steve's truck
Where's the truck at?
in the garage.
Oh, so
And
locked
he's the
up
one that nailed it all shut.
Who is?
Billy.
Is this the paperwork on the thing? Or?
No. This is property that Steve was buying
Oh.
after his inheritance got here.
Oh, okay.
The other day, she threw all his stuff out in the yard.
from his house?
Yeah, and he come out and he was holding his head down. And then we're supposed to go up to the airport and meet this guy because he's supposed to get quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
So we went up there, come back, we had to help him out of the car, had to help him in the house.
But the real shock came when Billy revealed that Stephen had recently learned he was in line for a $30 million inheritance. According to Billy, Stephen had met with a lawyer at the airport just days before his death. This revelation changed everything. If Stephen had indeed been set to receive a vast fortune, it meant that Ina had a powerful incentive to ensure that she was the sole beneficiary. Adding to the intrigue, on September 3rd, just a day before Stephen was hospitalized, local police responded to a call near his house about a resident named Chad who was intoxicated and acting aggressively. Chad had reportedly headbutted Stephen during a confrontation. Later that night, when officers arrived at Stephen's home to follow up, it was Ina who answered the door. She seemed eager to talk, not about Chad, but about the fortune she and Stephen were expecting.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi. Sorry.
You thought it was Chad?
Yeah.
Who was Chad out
trying
here?
to kick in everybody's door.
Who was he out here
busted
fighting?
in my light, and look at the garbage cans.
Who was here? Who was he fighting with out here?
My fiance, he went for a walk to cool down. He gets his inheritance this afternoon. That's why we're moving. We're gonna pay all our bills off that we need to pay off.
Do you guys want to press any charges against Chad?
I'll ask him when he gets here.
Are you asking your fiance?
Yeah.
Okay.
He went to cool down because
Okay.
Chad really
Who started the
woke him
fight?
up
Chad
right
or
in
who
dead
started
sleep.
the fight? Chad or your fiance?
Chad. Like I said, he has a really important appointment with his lawyer today at 2 o'clock.
She excitedly told officers that they would be moving soon after receiving their inheritance and that all their financial troubles would soon be over. This comment, in retrospect, appeared suspicious, especially given what happened to Stephen the following day. Stephen Riley was not a wealthy man. Originally from Stockton, California, he had met Ina at an Easter buffet dinner at a homeless shelter in Washington, her home state. They had both been struggling financially and decided to move to North Dakota in search of better opportunities.
I guess the guy that was running the shelter on the men's side told him about it and got him a ticket.
Okay, for like oil fields?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he never got a job, and so he started working for KFC.
Okay.
And then he sent me a ticket and pretty much asked me to marry him.
Unfortunately, life didn't improve much for Stephen. He worked various low-wage jobs, including a stint at KFC, while Ina relied on him for financial support. Their relationship was troubled, marked by financial struggles and legal issues. On his birthday, Stephen was arrested for drunk driving, despite Ina's pleas for him to let someone else drive.
On his birthday, we took him out for his birthday, and I begged him to let someone else drive or to walk.
Okay.
And he wasn't drunk or nothing yet, but apparently he drank a lot more than I noticed.
Okay.
Because by the time he got to jail, that's when the alcohol was really hitting. And he got the max.
So you got a DUI?
Every time he goes to jail, he got the max.
Okay.
This was not his first run-in with the law, and every time he was jailed, he received the maximum sentence. Steve had a criminal past, which made it difficult for him to find and keep a job. He struggled to stay on the right side of the law, and it didn't help that he had a complicated relationship with his so-called friends, Billy and Lynn. Lynn, in particular, would get mad at him, then turn around and report him to the authorities for something Billy had done. Steve had even gotten into fights just to keep his distance from them.
I mean, Lynn would get mad at him and then call and turn him in or whatever
Okay.
for something Billy did. We've even gotten into fights.
To stay away from Lynn?
Billy and Lynn and
Okay.
people like that. I don't like calling people nasty because, you know, you don't know what you look like, people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people assume the worst of me because I'm poor.
Right.
According to Ina, his girlfriend Billy and Lynn were bad influences. They were involved in felonies themselves and kept dragging Steve back into criminal behavior. During his latest stint in prison, Steve had developed a drug habit, which only strained his relationship with Ina further.
6 months ago, when he ran off with his crack whore, and he ran off to Devil's Lake with her.
Ina, despite everything, visited him in jail. She was willing to take him back, but under strict conditions. Steve had a pattern of self-destructive behavior that was difficult to deal with, but for some reason, Ina stood by him. She gave him an ultimatum. She would bail him out if he agreed to a contract. No drugs, no felonies. He had to get his ID, and most importantly, he had to get a real job.
Pretty much when I said, well, you know, if you can write me out a contract, I'll bail you out. But no drugs, no felonies, you're gonna get your ID, and you're gonna get a real job.
Steve agreed, knowing that it was his only shot at freedom. Ina made it clear, if he broke his promise, he would owe her the $700 she spent on his bail. Determined to turn his life around, Steve started looking for work. He took up odd jobs, including working as a security guard at the state fair and mowing lawns. But the pay wasn't steady. He needed something permanent. Meanwhile, Ina worked in housekeeping at a local hotel, trying to keep their financial situation stable. Then, out of the blue, they received news that seemed almost too good to be true. A lawyer from London contacted Steve, claiming to represent a distant relative who had passed away. According to the letter, this relative had left behind a $30 million fortune, and Steve was the sole heir. The lawyer stated he would be flying into Minot Airport, North Dakota, to finalize the transfer. All Steve had to do was meet him there. For someone who had struggled with unemployment and homelessness for most of his life, the idea of inheriting $30 million was almost unimaginable. It was a life-changing sum that would not only secure his future, but also allow him to fulfill his dreams. He talked about buying land, opening his own auto shop, and providing for his sons. However, there was one person who was conspicuously absent from his future plans: Ina. Ina believed she was entitled to a share of his inheritance as his common-law wife. Legally, this wasn't the case, but that didn't stop her from thinking she deserved a cut. Yet, something seemed off. Each time Steve tried to arrange a meeting with the lawyer, it got postponed. The lawyer claimed that someone was contesting the will and that he needed more time. After months of delays, they finally set the meeting for September 3rd. That morning, Ina was excited. The police had come to talk to her, but she wasn't worried. She was focused on the fortune that was about to come into their lives. But something went terribly wrong. Steve had gone to the airport with Billy to meet the lawyer, but the man never showed up. Steve returned home feeling uneasy. The realization started sinking in. He had likely been scammed. His bank details, personal information, everything he had given to the lawyer could now be in the hands of a fraudster. He had been counting on this inheritance to turn his life around, but now he was still penniless. And worse, he had no idea what to do next. On the drive back, something else began happening.
Because he's not happy. She was supposed to call the ambulance. She never called the ambulance.
It wasn't until the next day, September 4th, when Steve became completely unresponsive, that she finally called 911. Paramedics arrived to find Steve in critical condition. He had collapsed beside the bed, his body showing signs of poisoning rather than heat stroke. Doctors later confirmed that he had ingested antifreeze. Ina, however, maintained her initial theory. She insisted that it was heat stroke, pointing out that the symptoms were similar. But then she raised another possibility, that Steve had committed suicide.
He just went through that with his dad. His dad shot himself in the head with a shotgun.
Okay.
And I don't think he would want his kids, to go through what he went through. But then I could be wrong, he didn't want to face the fact that it was a scam. And I kept begging him to let me call the ambulance. And he's like, no, I'll be fine with some sleep.
So what do you think is wrong with Steve at this point? Like, why? What do you think is wrong with Steve? Why is he sick?
I thought they were right. It was heat stroke.
Okay.
Because he wasn't puking yet. And it was like, finally kind of sleeping in and out.
She suggested that, overwhelmed by the inheritance scam and the realization that he had lost everything, he may have taken his own life. There was just one problem with that theory. Steve's father had died by suicide, shooting himself with a shotgun.
I don't know. He ingested it smoking a cigarette, because he was always spilling crap on his cigarettes. And
Poisoning, I read. This time I read.
What do you mean this time?
Because the doctor said it looked like he drank antifreeze, or had antifreeze in his system. So I googled it, and it had the same symptoms as heat stroke.
Okay. When did you Google that?
The day he was in the hospital.
Steve had always said he would never put his kids through the same trauma. It seemed unlikely that he would have willingly poisoned himself, but Ina kept pushing the idea. She even claimed that Steve had refused medical attention when she initially offered to call an ambulance. The police weren't convinced. They started looking at Ina more closely. She had been the last person with Steve before he fell fatally ill. She had prepared his drinks that day. As they questioned her, she attempted to divert suspicion toward Billy and Lynn, calling them nasty people. But her reasoning was inconsistent. She suggested that Billy was too cowardly to commit murder, saying that he would just steal instead. Lynn, on the other hand, she described as the poisoning type. Yet, Lynn hadn't even been there that night. Ina's story continued to shift, and her demeanor raised further suspicion. She admitted that Steve had been drinking heavily the day before he died, almost an entire 24-pack of beer, according to her. She claimed that he had also been drinking iced tea and a glass of water, both of which she had prepared for him. Was it possible that one of those drinks contained antifreeze? As the police continued their investigation, Ina's behavior became increasingly erratic. She repeatedly emphasized that Steve had been clumsy in the past, even recalling an incident where he had accidentally poisoned himself. But the doctors found that hard to believe. Antifreeze poisoning was not something that happened by accident. Steve's reasons for wanting to end his life made sense to the police, but so did Ina's possible motives for killing him herself if he hadn't been planning to give her any money. Steve's romantic history was messy. His first wife, Cheryl, had once stabbed him. Another ex, Melissa, refused to speak to him and had a restraining order against him. His relationship with Ina was just the latest in a long line of dysfunction. The very day he had fallen sick, she had been seen throwing his belongings out of the house. Her story about his final days also didn't quite match up. Ina claimed Steve had stopped drinking once he became ill, and she had been giving him water and tea to help rehydrate him. But when paramedics arrived, she had told them a different story, one where Steve had been drinking until 5 a.m. She also told her neighbors that she had taken Steve to a clinic to get checked out, but there were no records of him ever seeking medical care before the paramedics were called on September 4th. When police confronted Ina with these contradictions during an interview on September 13th, her response was simple: "I want a lawyer." The facts of the case were disturbing. Steve, and by extension Ina, had been tricked into believing he was about to inherit a fortune of $30 million. The couple had been struggling financially, and Steve had a history of abandoning women when he found someone new. Ina knew he wasn't including her in his plans for the money, and when he got sick, she didn't rush to get him help. Instead, she lied about the care she had given him. The paramedics noted that she had been serving him iced tea, which, incidentally, can mask the taste of antifreeze. Steve's son, Ryan Riley, confirmed that his father and Ina had been unhappy for a long time. Ina had even been keeping tabs on Steve's online activity, particularly his communications with his lawyer. She would log into his email, transfer important messages to her phone, and Steve's phones had a habit of mysteriously disappearing. His friends noted that each time he got a new phone, it would go missing again. She had also made ominous comments in the past about using antifreeze to kill him, and her social media activity supported the theory that she had been harboring resentment towards Steve for a long time. In May 2021, she went on a spree of reposting old pictures of Steve, captioning them with bitter remarks. "Watch out for this man. He'll bleed you dry and spit you out. I hope you get what you deserve." Despite her anger, she stayed with him for another 2 years, but her resentment only grew. When police searched the house, they found physical evidence that corroborated their suspicions. In the living room, they discovered a Windex bottle filled with a bright green liquid, suspected antifreeze. In the garage, they found a glass cup and a mug containing the same substance. This was enough for police to move forward. On October 30th, they arrested Ina, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. In May 2024, she pleaded guilty. She admitted to poisoning Steve by adding antifreeze to his iced tea, believing she would inherit his supposed fortune. Her faulty understanding of common law marriage led her to believe that, as his long-term partner, she would be entitled to his estate. But there was never any money, and even if there had been, she wouldn't have seen a cent of it. It was a crime built on greed, misunderstanding, and desperation. Rather than take responsibility, Ina had tried to shift suspicion onto Steve's friends, Billy and Lynn, and even onto Steve himself. But the truth was clear. In October 2024, Ina Canoyer was sentenced to 25 years in prison, with an additional 25 years suspended, followed by 10 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay $3,455 in restitution to Steve's family, including his 5 sons, whom she had tried to cheat out of their father's estate. At her sentencing, Steve's sister made a powerful victim impact statement. That's all for this video. We hope you have found this video informative and interesting. What do you think of this twisted case? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon for more interesting videos like this. Thank you for watching our video.